The following audio recording has been designed for learning purposes only. Do not share, distribute, or provide any type of copies, or this audio lesson will not be made available to you. Good luck with today's lesson.
And like I said before when I popped in, today is going to be about trying to take our designs, make them seaworthy. Since we've got that nautical motif running through a lot of our logos. And learning how to render them out so that we can get them prepared to turn them in. And that's actually a process in and of itself, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then also, we're going to go through a little exercise in class today, and we'll talk more about what an exercise is and why we're doing it. It's going to be a little bit different than what you're probably used to, because what we're going to do in class, to give you the quick little preview, is going to be dictated by me up front. So you're going to follow along with me. We're going to create a small little animation inside of After Effects. And that's going to let me know that you are able to perform the tasks that are required, basically. You know, we're learning how to animate, we're learning how to use compositions, we're learning how to pre-comp, we're learning how to set keyframes. And this little exercise allows me to see you guys in action. And it also gives you a chance to kind of see where your abilities are truly at. There we go. Let's flip that over. We have a mouse, yep. We got power, yep. Good. Let's log this machine in and put this chair up. So the first thing we'll start with tonight is basically taking a look at your logos. So what I'd like you to do, which is why I mentioned this again earlier, have your projects out and let's be able to preview what you've got inside of After Effects. And I'm just going to come around and kind of offer a little bit of a critique, we'll say, on what you've got and what I think you still need to possibly do. And then we'll jump into everything else going from there. And for now, I'll throw on a little bit of music. Kind of kill the silence. Let's make just a new project here. I don't care. Here we go. And let's make let's draw a quick little ellipse. And so there's a ball. Let's grab this, snap that in the middle. So if I wanted to bounce this ball, composition's bothering me. There we go. I wouldn't animate X and Y together because it's just like you're seeing, it's pretty cumbersome, right? And I want to get it to look like a realistic bounce maybe. So what I would do instead is this. I'm going to click on this and just call it ball. And I'm going to hit the P key to bring up position. We can separate these two values and keyframe them individually. Okay? This is the X or horizontal value, right? And then this is the Y or vertical value. Okay? So if I right click and choose separate dimensions,
oh, sweet.
now I have two separate numbers. Now the reason why this is cool is because I can take this object, I can move it off screen, and then have it shoot on screen or across the screen when I want this ball to bounce. Okay. To get the bounce, I can click on Y, set a keyframe right here, go into Graph Editor, okay, and in Graph Editor I can start to add keyframes. Okay. And I'm just going to add these. I'm not even going to count them down like I normally would because I want this to be kind of quick. Okay, but in between these keyframes, that's where our bounces are going to occur. And I would turn on easing, see how they all have handles?
Yeah.
And then I can grab these handles. Let's make sure we're in the value graph, not the speed graph. And down is actually how we animate in the positive direction in the graph editor. So I have to break this handle, sorry. There we go. Okay. Now, let me drag this way down here. Getting this started is always kind of a pain. You can see how the ball is going up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's really just drag the heck out of this. And I can turn off my auto features that create this scroll, but I think we're getting there now, so it doesn't really matter. There we go. So you can see, let's say we want the ball to go that high on its first bounce. And then its second bounce, such a pain. All we're doing right now is breaking the handles. And I can actually do that with these buttons as well, but I'll try and get this to work. There we go. And what we want to do is create a decay curve. Okay? So something like this where the handles are even on.
The bounce is going to go littler and littler.
You got it.
Right.
So
Unless it's one of those clicky things that goes forever, perpetual motion.
oh, right. And that's called an oscillation, and we're going to talk about those again later. But the decay curve is actually the negative curve that's being built right here.
Right.
You can kind of see it. And this is rough. Let me zoom in here and just kind of end this curve. There we go. So let's say that's the whole bounce. This is really rough. I actually teach an assignment based on this in the compositing and 2D animatics class. So if we watch that, see how that feels like an actual bounce?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to take this on the X and set a keyframe at the beginning. I'll move it off screen. I'm going to go to just past the end of this bounce. I'm going to drag this on screen. Maybe there. And then I'll grab these points, ease them. There we go. So just 2 keyframes to move it along the X. Right?
Yeah.
And that feels more like real motion. I can kind of flatten out that landing so that it kind of rolls a little bit. I can pull that keyframe down the timeline. And it doesn't mess up my curve when I adjust where it stops. Okay, so what if I wanted it to get across the screen? Then I would go to that keyframe for the X and just drag it down the timeline. Maybe I want it to roll all the way to the edge. Okay, so what you're doing works, but it's not the ideal approach. It's just that this approach, even though I did this quickly, takes a lot of explaining in order to know how to use that in all situations.
Right. We're not there yet.
We're just not quite there yet. But separating dimensions is something that you can play with, obviously. And I'll even throw this project up at some point tonight so you can pull it out of Dropbox.
Okay.
So, okay? And that bouncing example's in the Dropbox.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so make sure you save where you're at. I'm going to pause. Good old Ziggy here. There we go. And what we're going to do now is what I was describing earlier. Let's make sure I got all the screen real estate that I can possibly use here. There we go. We're going to go through a little exercise inside of After Effects. When we're done, we're going to package this up and you're going to send it to me through Canvas, okay, which will be real simple to do. And we'll talk about that process when we get to that point. But for this exercise, it is of paramount importance that you follow along and do what it is that I am showing you on screen at the same time. Okay, so this is not a normal demo where Sean gets up here and he goes blah 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 and this and fun and work hard and this is great and animation's terrific. What I'm doing, you're going to be doing simultaneously with me. Okay, I will make sure that I'm talking a little slower so that you've got a chance to maybe hear me, look, and then turn and do, and then look and then do. And we're going to go through this for a few minutes until we've built a little animation together. Okay? We're all going to do the exact same thing. Once we're done, you're going to send it to me. And then exercise 1 is off your plates and on the books. I'll get the files from you through Canvas. I'll grade them and you'll get points. Okay? And then we'll know how well all of this is beginning to make sense. So if you fall behind or you can't finish, you're still going to send me whatever you've got, wherever it's at, based on when I say, okay, that's it. Now we're going to package this up, and you're going to send it to me, and we'll talk about the send process when we get to that point. Okay? And I am also going to record this, and I'll put this little demonstration exercise up on Vimeo, but that's just for you to have. It's not because you get to do this later or whatever. It's just up there so that there's a record of what we did in case you want to go back and see what we did again. Okay, so this isn't one of those demos where I just talk for a while and then after you're going to have time to do the thing. No, you're going to do it with me. That's why it's an exercise and not a project. Projects are, project 1, where I come around and you're working and you can watch the videos or you can listen to me or whatever the case may be. Assignments are like running drills, okay? Anybody in here, I think I've asked this before, you guys, a lot of sports, a lot of athletes in here, former athletes, high school athletes, okay. So drills, right? Any team you were a part of, you had layup drills if you were basketball or horseshoes or, on the football field, all the different drills you used to run or track or soccer or whatever it was. That's what this is. We're just trying to make sure that those basic skills are being practiced. If you don't do well, it's not an indictment of your abilities. It just means, okay, I know I need to work on this. You understand? Okay, because I did have one class feel really badly about their own abilities because they couldn't keep up, and it's not the end of the world. It just is a way for me to know if you're at the spot you need to be or if we need to make adjustments. Is that understood? So do the best you can do. Don't freak out. If you have a question and it's a quick question, I'll try and answer it. But if it's more than like 10 or 15 words, to keep everybody else moving forward, I might just say, look, that's too long. We're just going to keep going, see what you can do. I am not going to be able to get up from this chair in the middle of the demo and run over and see what's going on, okay? So that's why you got to follow along. Does that make sense? But what we're going to do is not going to be that hard, and I promise you, for 99.9% of you, you're going to wish that I didn't give this speech beforehand because you're going to feel like it's way overkill once we go through this little exercise, okay? Fair enough? Everybody's on board? We know what's happening? Sweet. Then let's get started. So make sure that you've saved and closed your project. Not After Effects, but closed your project, okay? If you don't see the After Effects interface on your screen the way that mine looks, and everybody whose screen's facing toward me, they all look correct. So that's good. So look at your neighbors, behind you, let's say, to see if your screen looks like theirs, and if it does, you're good. And I'm going to start recording this right about now, and then we'll do this. Fun times. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create a new composition inside of After Effects, and that is the command, let me click on After Effects here, that is the Command N key command. We're going to get composition settings, that's going to pop up on screen, and your composition name, we're going to start with that, okay? So Command N composition settings, you'll see the window that I have on my screen, and we're going to name this E01, okay, so capital E01, and then underscore first name, last name, okay, and then underscore ball, okay. So if you can see it on screen, you're going to have a name like that for your composition. E01 underscore your name underscore ball, B-A-L-L, okay? The composition width should be 1920 in pixels. The height should be 1080 pixels. So 1920 by 1080, okay? You can even lock the aspect ratio, and that should make these numbers correct, okay? Frame rate 30. And then for duration, right now mine is in frames, okay, but you want your animation to be 5 seconds. Okay, so highlight duration, type 5 and then 2 zeros. Okay, if you're seeing frames, then that means you see the word frames to the right of that field that houses the duration. Type 150. Okay, so if it's time code, you're going to highlight the whole thing. You're going to type 5 followed by 2 zeros. If it's frames, you're going to also highlight the whole thing, and you're going to type 150. So if this word is frames like I have on screen, you'll type 150. Okay, if it's not, and it looks like this, okay, then you'll highlight the whole thing, and you'll type 5 and then 2 zeros. No semicolons, no punctuation, just that for time code. So the number 500 for time code, okay, or the number 150 for frames, okay? Now, we've got a new composition, and we need an object, obviously, if we're going to animate. So we're going to come up to our tools at the very top here. So top left of the screen where we've got all of our tools, and you're going to click on the ellipse tool, okay? If you don't see that, it's going to be to the right of your pan behind tool and to the left of your pen tool. Just click down, hold down the button, and you can find the ellipse in the list that pops out. Okay, so we want the ellipse tool, and we're going to draw a circle. Okay, so we're just going to click and start drawing, and you'll see a shape like this. Hold down the Shift key to make this a perfect circle. Okay. Now, if it has a stroke, don't worry about it. We're going to fix that, okay? But make sure that you have a circle, okay? If you have a circle and it has no fill and a stroke, we want to use a fill and no stroke, which means that this object that we just created, we want it to look like a filled circular shape, almost like a ball, okay? Hence the name of the composition, okay? So to get that, if we click on where it says fill, the word, okay, I can click on this second option under fill options, okay, so that I can add a solid color. Now you don't have to do this if you see a solid color for the fill, but if you don't, then you would click on this second option and click OK, and then you could click on the swatch and then pick a color. I don't care what color this ball is. just as long as it's a filled object. Now, if it has a stroke, and the way you'll know is if you look at the top with the object selected, you'll see that there's a pixel value here, and there's a color that runs around this line. Okay, I want you to click on the word stroke, if this is the case, and click on that first option, which is none, and then click OK, because we don't want a stroke. Okay, we want no stroke. Okay, so we've got a ball. We want to animate the ball. We're going to select the layer. We're going to hit the return key. And we're going to call this layer ball, B-A-L-L, okay? And then we're just going to click away from that layer. And now we've got a named layer named ball, okay? Now I'm going to click back on the ball layer, okay? And notice how my anchor point is not exactly in the center of the ball, okay? So I'm going to zoom in here. We can all see that anchor point. Yeah, everybody sees the anchor point on screen. Cool. Okay, this anchor point, we want it to be in the center of our ball, wherever that ball is. Okay, to get it there, we need to first grab the pan behind tool, which is this. Okay, so I have the pan behind tool. That's that little icon. It's the fifth one from the left. So if you start with the move cursor and you count over, you'll see a pattern of 4 arrows pointing up, down, left, right.
Okay.
Click on that icon. That's the pan behind tool. There's also a key command for it. That's the Y key. So if you're not sure how to find it in the tool box up here, just hit the Y key. Okay. I can grab the anchor point and I can now move it around freely. But if I hold down the command key while I'm moving this around, the anchor point snaps to the edges or the center. See how, if you look at my screen, see how it's those blue lines keep showing up and it's trying to snap? Okay, it's even snapping to the edge of the ball. I'm holding down the command key while I'm using the pan behind tool and I'm moving the anchor point. Okay, so keep the command key held down, the mouse button held down once you've clicked on the anchor point, and when you roll over your ball, you'll actually feel the mouse click into place when you get toward the center of the ball. Okay, and at that point you can let go. So now we've put the anchor point at the center of the object that we created with a shape layer, which makes animating this object much, much easier. Okay, now we're going to create a complex physics animation where we bounce the ball all over the composition, and it's going to be really complex and difficult. Just kidding. Okay, all we're going to do, even though we went through the pain in the process of learning how to use the pan behind tool, is we're going to take this object. So I'm going to hit the V key to switch back to the move tool. We're going to move it off screen somewhere in the top left corner. Take a look at where I'm putting my ball. Off screen in the top left corner, so somewhere over here. And then at 0 on the timeline, okay, make sure that your current time indicator is at 0. You can hit the home key on your keyboard to do that. We're going to click on the ball layer and we're going to hit the P key, okay, P as in position. And then at 0, with the position layer transform, we're going to turn on keyframing. So click the stopwatch. And then I want you to go all the way to the end of your 5-second timeline. So you could hit the end key or just grab the current time indicator, drag it all the way to the right-hand side of the timeline. Then you're going to grab the ball. You're going to drag it across the screen. And you're going to hold down Shift to constrain the motion so that it goes all the way across. Okay, and just off screen like so. Okay. So if I hit my space bar, this is what I've got. The world's most boring ball animation. Okay. Now, take a look at my ball on screen. take a look at your ball on screen. If there's a dramatic difference in size, we need to change that, okay? Because I want your ball and mine to be roughly, and I said roughly, the same size. So if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. There's no way that it can be, because you can't measure mine, to yours from looking at one screen to the other. So what I want you to do, if it's not roughly this size already, click on your ball layer, bring up scale, which is the S key, and then let's turn this value down to make the ball fit the current size of my ball, something closer to that, okay? And you'll see why momentarily. So now we have a ball traveling 5 seconds, okay, across our timeline. But it's extremely boring. And we know that boring is bad, and we need to put visual interest into this motion. So now we're going to click on the ball layer. We're going to hit the P key to bring back our keyframes. And I want you to click on the word position. When you do that, that's going to highlight all of our keyframes, which is just the two, one at the beginning, one at the end of the timeline. Okay, so they should both be highlighted, which means they should both be blue. So 2 little blue diamonds, like we're eating a bowl of Lucky Charms right now. Okay, we're going to right-click on the keyframes, first or last, doesn't matter. We're going to go down to Keyframe Assistant, and we're going to choose Easy Ease. Okay? And then once you've chosen that, see where I'm at right now? I got Easy Ease chosen.
I don't know how you got there.
Right-click on the selected keyframe. So first, click on Position so that these are highlighted in blue. Can you see them?
Yeah.
Okay, right-click on the keyframes. So go over to your timeline with your mouse.
My thing isn't working. It's not working.
Take your mouse, go right with your mouse. Keep going. Okay, see that blue diamond? Right-click on it. Okay, there you go. So if you right-click on that toward the bottom, Keyframe Assistant, just like I got on my screen, and then Easy Ease. There you go. Bada bing, bada bip, bada boop.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So now we've got eased keyframes, and if I play this animation again, so it's slightly less boring because it starts slow, speeds up slightly, and then slows down again. Whoop-de-doo. But we know we can make this better. With these keyframes selected, we are going to click on this button right here, which is our graph editor button. Okay? So in our timeline, we've got this row of icons here, that last button before the actual numeric timeline. We're going to click on this guy called Graph Editor. Okay? And we're going to be able to see our keyframes in the form of a graph right here. Okay? Now, if you see what is on screen currently, something like this, that's our value graph, and we don't want to work with the value graph right now. We want to work with the speed graph, okay? So we're going to click, if you look at the bottom of your timeline, there's a row of icons. The very first icon looks like a visibility switch. It's the eyeball. Next to that on the right is the Graph Editor Options button. We're going to click that, and we're going to choose Edit Speed Graph, okay? And now we've got this kind of arch that we see here. Okay, everybody sees the arch, right? Cool. It's not the arches, it's the arcs for McDowell's. We got any Coming to America fans in here? Everyone go home right now and watch Coming to America. You'll thank me for it. I see only one, two. No, I see some hands. All right, I see a couple of hands. One of the funniest movies ever. Okay. And they're making a sequel to it. Yay! Okay.
Well, they are.
They are. But before we start talking about Eddie Murphy's career and why he should always be working, let's take a look at the speed curve that we see on our screens. We want to adjust this to give this ball a little more visual interest. And we know that the flatter or more horizontal our curve is, the slower the item goes. Okay, the more that it peaks or goes vertically, the faster the item goes. So I'm going to grab this handle, on the left and drag it toward the right. I'm going to do the exact opposite with the other handle, and I'm going to get something like this. Okay? Now, if you look at your composition window after you adjust your speed graph, you're going to notice that the dots that were a lot closer together in the middle have now spaced themselves apart. Okay, that's because these are the frames of your animation, and we now have less frames in the middle and more frames on the end, which, if you remember our little video that we watched on the 12 principles of animation, this is known as timing and spacing. Okay, now if we play this, I'm going to hit the space bar to play the animation. Now the ball zips across in the middle and then slows down at the ends. So it starts slow, speeds up drastically, and then slows down again. Your animation should look something like this at this moment. You should have a ball that starts slow, speeds up, and then slows down. And your graph should look something like my graph. If it's in the ballpark of what I have on screen, you have succeeded with the easy part of our exercise. Okay, ready for the super duper hard part? The part that's going to blow your minds? Here we go. This is the hard part. I'm going to turn off speed graph. Okay, so I'm going to click on that button, turn it off so I see my keyframes again. I want to duplicate this animation that I've created, but we're dealing with position keyframes, so this is tricky. Okay, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to click on ball. I'm going to hit the key command, Command D, as in duh, I want to duplicate. Okay, or I could just say D as in duplicate, right? I've got two layers now. They're both one on top of the other, so you're not going to notice a difference yet. The layer that's on top, the one that should be called like ball 2, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the timeline, which is the most important step here. Take your current time indicator, get it back to the start of the timeline. Your timeline should read 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, okay, right here. I think I said enough zeros. I should have said 7 zeros. Then you're going to click on ball 2 and hit the P key once again to bring up your position keyframes. Okay, and here comes the hard part. We're going to select the word position. That should highlight or make blue the two keyframes for the layer that we're currently working on. So if those first two keyframes are blue, then do this. I'm going to grab the Y value and drag it down, so that this ball is roughly running through the center of the animation. Okay? It's actually not that hard, right? Now if I play this again, I've got two of the exact same thing happening simultaneously running across the screen. So if you see something along the lines of this, take a look at my screen, make sure mine and yours look similar, then congratulations, you have graduated to step 2 of this little exercise. Okay, or in this case, it should be step 3. All right, and here's what we're going to do next. We're going to select ball 2, or the topmost ball layer. We're going to duplicate it again. So Command D, and then same exact drill as before. You're going to hit the P key. You're going to click on the word position. And again, your current time indicator has to be at 0 where those keyframes are. And with both keyframes for this third layer selected, both the keyframes are again highlighted in blue, we're going to grab our Y value, click and drag one more time, and make this a third item on screen. Okay? So just like we did the second layer, we're going to do the third layer, and then you should have this. Okay? So if you've got 3 layers, make sure you've got both keyframes highlighted before you move it, which means click on the word position. And then once you've done that, and your current time indicator is at the beginning of the timeline, then you can use this second value to slide that down. Okay? All right. Now comes the super duper, super complex part. Ready? Ready for the most complex part ever in the history of exercises that just started today? Click on ball 2. Open up Graph Editor and just change the graph. I don't care how you change it. Make it look and move any way that you want. But I want it to be different. So see how this is clearly a different graph from the one that we saw before? Okay. And then same thing for ball 3. You're going to click on that. Go back into Graph Editor. You shouldn't have to change back to speed graph. You should be still on the speed graph like I am. And then readjust these handles completely differently. And when you're done, you should have an animation like what I've got on screen. Okay, where you've got 3 completely different speeds happening with your ball layers. Okay, so that it looks like 3 separate animated ball layers happening at different speeds. That's what we should see. You have a question? Is it a quick question? Okay, well, we'll see.
So when I try to move the position, like after I made the ball and then try to move the Y position, it's
Here, this, because you're making a big boo-boo, and it's a simple boo-boo. I was calling it complex, but it's really easy. Click on position, make sure both keyframes are highlighted, and make sure your current time indicator is hovering over those keyframes at 0. And then if you grab your Y position value, you should be able to move the object vertically without damaging your keyframes. Okay, so that's the trick. It's both keyframes highlighted, and your current time indicator is hovering over the keyframes at 0. Then it'll work without a hitch. Okay? And remember, you'll select ball 2, you'll go into Graph Editor, you're already under the speed graph, so you don't have to flip anything around, just grab those handles and change them. Okay, the handles are at the beginning and end points of the speed graph because that's your keyframes. Okay, so just make them look different. Okay? Don't worry about, well, I really want to nuance this animation. No, you don't. You don't need to. I just want to see that you know how to use speed graph enough to get in, adjust handles, and therefore change the velocity of a moving object. That's all I'm looking for. Okay, again, this is an exercise, not an assignment. So once you have done that, okay, once you have 3 ball graphics on screen that are moving at different speeds, okay, but the keyframes have not changed on the timeline. You haven't moved the keyframes around. You just changed the handles. See how all 6 of my keyframes are at the beginning and the end of the animation? They haven't changed. It's just what's happening in between those keyframes that's changing, or different rather. Okay? So once you have this, then comes the hardest part of the whole ordeal. Let's save the project and turn it in. I'm going to go under File and choose Save. And the same naming convention we used for the composition, we're going to use for the project. Okay? So E01 underscore first name, last name, underscore ball, B-A-L-L. And then save your project. Okay? Now, to get this to me, all you have to do is this. Find your project on your machine. Okay? right-click it, choose compress, and the zip file that's created is what you're going to email me through Canvas. Okay, all you have to do is log into Canvas, click on your inbox. Okay, in your inbox, everybody knows how to send me an email from Canvas, correct? Who doesn't? So nobody's raising their hand, one person. Okay, look for your inbox, click on that, and then right at the top toward the right where it shows how to compose a message, like regular email, click on that. Okay, and I'm not seeing Canvas, I'm seeing people in their My Macomb. You want to be in your Canvas. There's Canvas. And I think there's Canvas. There you go. And that blue bar on the left, there's a button called Inbox. Click that. And then in there, on that top bar, that little icon that allows you to compose a new message, click on that. And then you'll choose inside to or recipient, whatever it's called. You'll pick this class, right, which is 1900 for you. And then under that, where it says to, where you have to list an actual person, if you click there, it'll say teacher. Just click on teacher. You'll see my name. I'm your only teacher. And then you're all set. Then you can attach the document, add, like any email, a subject line, which is just EO1, 1900. So 1900 EO1 or EO1 1900. And then send that zip file to me and you're done. Yes?
What is the subject for the email?
1900 EO1.
Okay.
You're required to write something in the
You shouldn't have to put anything in the message field, but you will be asked more than likely to put something in the subject field, which is why I'm saying just drop in there EO1 1900. Okay? I mean, this is just how you message me. Everybody knows how to do that, so do that. Okay, and that's it. That's essentially all that we are doing. I'm going to stop this video right here. Okay, and we're going to save this. And later on this evening, at some point, this will be up on Vimeo. There we go. See, what did I tell you? That was pretty simple, right? That wasn't a whole lot. Make one shape, duplicate it twice, and change the duplicates is essentially all we did. And again, why go through that? Oh, it's so painful, Sean. I got to turn and look at you and look back and listen and work and this and this and that. It's, again, because I want you guys to get to the point where I can say, go into After Effects, grab a shape layer, make a nice ball shape of some sort, animate it across the screen, but I want you to go into Speed Graph and change the velocity so that it looks like it's more natural. I want to be able to say those words to you, and I want you to be able to go, okay, and then do it, because that's the goal, okay? We want to get our knowledge in this class of the fundamentals to the point where I can do that. Not that that's, something that's going to keep happening. We only got 2 other exercises. But I want you guys to be practicing with these tools whenever you can so that we can get to that point. If we were musicians, okay, my daughter is a classical musician in training. She's in school right now. She's down in Ohio studying the saxophone. And they have things called, what do they call them? Not orientation, we'll call it orientation, where they bring in the students and they have to literally play a piece right on the spot. They call it sight reading. Okay? It's the scariest thing ever for musicians. We got some musicians in here? I heard, oh. Okay. So sight reading sucks, doesn't it? Because you don't know the piece, right? You don't know what's going to happen. You have to walk up to the music and pray to God you understand it enough to be able to belt out a tune. Okay? It is one of the worst experiences ever for an artist. So why the hell would I want to emulate that in a classroom? And it's for the same reason why this practice will still go on despite the fact that musicians everywhere, even the ones in this class, will one day revolt and kill their instructors for that very reason. Because it forces everybody to really think about what they're learning. Here's the problem with learning. Most of it's passive. Okay, you come into a room like this, I start jibber-jabbering about all things motion. Okay, and it feels like you're participating because you're listening and you're watching and the words I'm saying are making sense and you kind of understand where I'm going and it feels like you're getting somewhere. You're not. I mean, you are, but you're not because you're not doing it. You're not taking that information and then putting it to work. It's why we always tell you about something and then turn around and make you use that thing we told you by making something, right? That's why the process works that way. But even that process is a bit of a lie, especially when you consider the fact that everything I say is Memorex, and you can just play it back 1,000 million times, God forbid, and may heaven have mercy on your souls if you do that. Okay? But you can just play back the video and watch it. Like, I don't remember that thing Sean said. Let me just go in there. It's the equivalent in a classroom of just Googling all the answers, right? Because Google's right there. You can just, I don't know what the circumference of a circle is or how to get it. So let me just Google that shit. And, oh, there it is. Cool. Okay? But in this case, we have to start remembering what that is, what that method is, what those tools are, what those notes are, what those notes on paper mean. Okay? And that's why exercises like this are important. I'm only going to do a small handful with you. And I know this may not have seemed simple. Later you'll say, my God, that was finger painting, Sean. Why'd you waste my time with that simple task? And that's great when you get to the point where you can say that. I want you to be able to say that. Okay? But even though it's simple, there's still a little bit of stress that was associated with that, right? Like, God, I don't know what he just said. When he said this is super easy, okay, hold on, let me, right? And that little bit of frustration, that working without a net, okay, I guarantee you're not going to forget how to select your keyframes and move an object without changing the keyframe values other than the way you want them to. I guarantee you're not going to forget how to find speed graph because you forced yourself to remember on the fly when I said it, as opposed to just, well, Sean said it in the video, so let's just look that up and, there it is, and I'll just do what he said there, and now I'm done. Okay, that's how you become proficient with the software where you can walk out of here and go get a job, okay, and take work from me. That's the goal. I teach now all the time, so I don't have to worry about losing work to you guys as much. So I can work even harder to make sure that you guys are the best that you could possibly be. But that's the goal, okay? And on the job, you're going to have an art director on one shoulder and a client on the other, and they're both going to be, hey, you know what I want to see next, and you know what you should do now, and oh, why don't you move it this way, and blah, blah, blah. You're going to have to do these things. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, sure. Everybody slow down. Let me make that happen, and let me change this, and you know, well, can we make something more dazzling where the thing disappears and then comes back, and you'll have to think of that while you're working and doing things. And at that moment, you're not going to be able to jump over to Papa Sean's, video corner and be like, that lesson in the middle of the semester. Yeah, hold on, guys. Let me just listen to some weird ass clown talking in a video. That's not going to fly. Okay? Does that make sense? I'm not making jokes because I've been talking a lot again and I want to try and make this light. But you get where I'm coming from, right? Now, we're taking baby steps because this is just the beginning of the first class in maybe your first semester of motion. But this should be your goal, trying to get you guys on the path to success right from Jump Street. Because I don't want you to take the little paths that take you off course. I want you to take the most direct route to success as we can possibly point you on. And this is the way to get there. Force yourself to use these skills without a net. Come up with projects, okay? I hate telling any artist, see, I'm going to throw up a little bit in my mouth because of what I'm about to say. I hate telling any artist this because I think you guys can do this on your own. Sometimes it helps. Ask your friends, right? Hey, you need a logo animation? I'm learning this stuff. Okay, and they'll find something for you to do. Oh yeah, you know what? I got this great genius idea for a shoe line, and you know what I need? I need like 3 logos animated, and you're learning how to do this, and it's fun for you, right? So yeah, why don't you do this for me? You're not going to make any money. You're going to probably get into a fight with this person. You're probably going to break that relationship in half, okay? But the part that's beneficial is the whole, no one's giving you the script, so you have to define it and then make it happen on your own with somebody breathing down your neck. That drill is valuable, okay? Getting burned for doing free work for people isn't valuable. That's why I don't like recommending this process. But it is good in the sense that it gives you something to do that forces you to learn more without a net, okay? I learned the most that I learned about all of this when I was thrown into situations where they were like, let's see if he swims. Okay, splish, bloop, 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 and then I sink, okay? That's how I learned what I know, mostly, okay? Through trial and error and being put on the spot and forced to figure things out without somebody behind me telling me what to do. That's the great handicap that you guys and gals have that I didn't have, okay? And I wish I had what you guys have now, but I'm glad I didn't. I know that sounds weird, but you can literally go on Google or any search engine and find almost any answer, especially if you know what to type, instantaneously. We didn't have that shit, not 10 years ago, okay? So if I was trying to do something that somebody wanted, and they move the thing in the movie, the Matrix movie, do those things in the air with the bullets fly, something like that. Ha! Oh, okay. Let me think. Let me check the software. Is there anything online? No. Shit. Okay. That forced me to think a lot harder about what I knew. Okay? And that's how you retain knowledge that you pick up in class. Okay? And figure out your own process. Because everybody has their own process of working, which is related to the things they like to make and their style and all of it. Okay? But that's how you get there. When you have the answers, okay, it's like literally just opening up to the back of the textbook in math class and just, okay, number 1 is 7, number 2 is 8. Okay, you're not really getting anything out of that process. So this exercise isn't just about me drilling you to see what you picked up in class. It's about teaching you a process that can help you more than any lecture that I could possibly come up with in this class to give you. Does that make sense? So consider that and practice, play, make shit up, get people to give you projects. Come to me, actually, and say, I'm looking to practice with After Effects. Can you give me anything that you think would be beneficial to practice? And I'll say, yeah. And the other thing I'll do, which is why I'm saying this right now, is I'll point you to my Vimeo page. And for $9.95, no, sorry. I hear myself and I sound like a salesman sometimes, and it's like, oh, stop it. But if you go to my Vimeo page, we're going to talk about Vimeo and samples later. We're not there yet. But for now, if you go to my Vimeo page and you click on likes, so it's not to look through my stuff, although you could, because I do have a lot of things that I've done in my career. But more important than me, if you click on my likes for years on Vimeo, for students, I've collected quality animation. Mostly the type of animation that you can create using these very tools in this program, including largely, mainly After Effects, because for a number of years, that's what I did more than anything. I was an After Effects animator, visual effects designer, and I worked on movies and cartoons and TV shows, and it was all make it work with After Effects, jackass. So that's what I did. And because of that, I acquired a lot of quality animation through studying others that I just hung on to in the form of likes. So if you go through these likes, let's say one day you're bored, or not bored, bored's the wrong term. Let's say you're eager to practice, okay, and you want to just see good animation. Like, well, what is quality? He keeps talking about the 12 principles. He keeps talking about, cause and effect and making things move and moving with a purpose. I don't know what the hell any of that means. And I don't have time to watch Cartoon Network all day, and I'm not even sure if that's quality in regard to some of the shows. You can go through these likes. You can find animators on your own, okay, and then start to follow them. For instance, this animation right here. Okay. And they made sure to giggle at the end of the animation, which is great. That animation was made by, let me just tell you this, and then you can look at these names down here and check me on this. That animation was a practice animation made as an advertisement to basically friends and associates in the motion design industry in Michigan. Okay, the people that made that, most of them attended classes here in some way or another, including Mr. Nick Forche, who probably came up with the shirt thing, because that's Nick. He owns a studio downtown now, okay, called Gunner, if memory serves. And they are a $1 million, well, not $1 billion, they're definitely over a couple of $1 million a year business in the motion design industry. They do work for Nike and Coke and, you know, the NFL and a bunch of other stuff, Google and Verizon. You name the big client, they've probably worked for that client in some way. Okay, and that's just one of like 8 or 9 different big motion design companies in town. And that's just the companies that deal in just high-end motion. Okay, not the ones that exist beyond that, and that's all I'll say because I don't want to go too far with this. But those pieces were actually vignettes that each person invited to, you know, kind of MC the barbecue had to do. That's the game, right? There's always like different MCs, and each one of them has to make their own little part of the animation, right? So Nick had one part, and Ian had another, and Courtney had another, and Scott had another, and then all of them were compiled later on and put up as an animated invite, okay? You know how much money they made from that? 0, okay? You know how many people asked them to do that? 0. It was practice for a barbecue where industry friends get together and bitch about clients, okay? And yet, look at the quality of that animation. And yeah, it's a little juvenile in spots, and I'm sorry about that. I forgot that there was an especially juvenile part right in the middle, or toward the end rather. But that's these guys. But it doesn't matter because the content isn't exactly what I'm referring to. The quality of the content and the fact that that was just a piece they used to practice their skills is what is important. Because then a client sees that and wants something similar. They've already done it. Okay, they did it on their own. They figured it out on their own. Okay. Maybe if they hadn't have done this and that same client asked for the same animation, they would have been in a predicament. But they weren't because they already did this. Okay, you can find clever ways to push yourselves to get quality work created, or at least work that practices the things that you're learning in class. And as artists, you have to do that. Okay, there's no getting around that. You can't be passive. Okay, and I'm not saying this again because I think anybody in here is lazy. It's just that's how the world is designed now. It's designed for all of us to be passive in our easy chairs while stuff just comes to us, okay? And that's the wrong mentality if you want to be a working artist in the industry. You have to force yourself to learn how to move on your own, and that means making things all the time. Any of the classes you're taking, this advice would apply, okay? But especially with a program like After Effects that's just so open-ended, okay? There's so much to learn, yeah, but the interface, as you can see, isn't that difficult once you start playing around with it. But it's way open-ended. You can do so many different things with just After Effects, okay? Different types of animation, different quality animation, you can do visual effects and all sorts of stuff. So any interest that speaks to you, you could use that interest as a way of furthering your knowledge. Does that make sense? If you like YouTube movies that people make, like low-budget special effects movies, After Effects is the tool of choice for making those effects. And you can learn tons about the tool, just trying to force yourself into making things like that. You know, animations like this, same thing, and so on and so forth, okay? So these types of exercises, when they come up in either this class or others, it's just a way to kind of force us to think without the safety net of, oh, don't worry about it, baby bird. Just watch the video and then you can see how everything works. Because great for a portion of the learning process, but that can't be the entire learning process, or you're going to walk away feeling like you didn't learn a thing. Okay? All right, so there's my big spiel on that. I promise I'll stop. The rest of the class is yours. Okay? I do want to cover rendering and maybe a few other neat little things, but I think in light of all the talking that I just did, I'll cut that short tonight and just give you the rest of the class to work. The rendering of your animation we'll do in the next class, okay? And at that point, we'll also talk about turning in Project 1 as well. Project 2, because I'll just say this and finish up right now, then you can do whatever you want. You can even leave early if you want today. Project 2 is going to take us in a totally different direction from what we've been doing. Okay, this project's been about keyframing and timeline and fundamentals. And a couple of people have actually seen things under like the effects menu and said, why not that stuff too? Our next assignment is all effects. Okay, it's going to literally probably blow some of your minds from the complexity of what we're going to be playing around with, because it's all effects. So we jumped into the kiddie pool with keyframing. Now we're going to leap out of the kiddie pool and jump into the ocean where the hurricane is. With effects, because that's just the only way where we can really do it and see what effects you're capable of. Okay, and then we'll bop around and how hard things are from there. Does that make sense? So I think everybody's animations, and I like where they're going. You can use this time to keep working if you want, because this is your time. But all I'm going to do at this point is make sure that these videos get uploaded for you guys, the one that we did today. Then a couple from the prior class, and then just kind of maybe check in again with you if you're still working. If you want to get out of here a little early today, just make sure you initial that book before you leave so I know that you're safe. Also, don't forget to log out of your computer. I'm sorry that I keep harping on that, but it's something that we always have to do in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? We'll see what we have. 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 11, 13, 14, 16, 17. Maybe one shy of the trip. Okay? I was going to go through and do the attendance dance, but I figure I'll let you off the hook on that too. That's why I just showed you that I can count to 17. Okay? Yeah. Woo for Sean. Did he use his fingers? He's got 17 of them, right? I'll see you guys in the next class if you head out. Otherwise, you can hang out and work. I'll throw the music back on.
Sean,
Good job getting through the exercise. Yes.
Where did you put the ball?
It should be inside of Project OM. It should be called ball example. It didn't look like
Maybe
it
it's
made
bouncing example.
Bouncing example, that's the one. Sorry, that's it. That's right, I didn't use ball because I didn't want it to get confused with our exercise. That's right. Let's throw on good old Thin White Duke. Let's get him back on. Boop, 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 boop.
I'm not falling for it. I'm falling for that shit.
Oh my god, you whoa.
He doesn't even do it right.
Oh no, geez.
7 annoying.
7.
I think he is. Just leave over.
Oh my god.
They're just.
I actually think he is like 7th grade. I think he's kidding. It's freaking annoying. Is it raining outside? Or is it not?
Okay, so this.
So I have another question. If you have two,
So yeah, that's just like, I don't know. I don't either, but when I do, that's what happens.
Two keyframes.
well, no, two objects,
Okay.
okay? Because I got my line going across.
Mm-hmm.
I had to split it and make a hexagon, so it went around there,
Right.
and then off that. And I
Mhm.
want to speed graph it, so that whole thing. Do I have to? Can you speed graph a pre-comp?
If you use time remap, yes, which is a whole nother thing that we haven't talked about yet. But yeah,
Okay.
let's say you've got an animation, well, what you just described. You've got an object that flies all over the screen. Let's say it's not even an After Effects animation. Let's say it's just an object that you animated in another program, very slowly animating consistently like this, and you want to control the speed of that motion. You can put it in a pre-comp, okay, and then add what's called time remap to it. Time remapping is literally controlling the velocity of the playback of the clip, okay? So it could be a footage file, it could be a series of frames, it could be a pre-comp, which means something you animated in a comp and then put into a pre-comp, okay? Time remap is, again, one of those like level 2 tools that we're not quite to yet, but yes, and you would use exactly what you said. Speed graph would be the thing you'd play with. The only gotcha with time remap when you're performing changes like that is it's kind of like your DVR at home. When you cut something down to like 1/4 speed, so let's say you DVR'd a show. I like animation, so I do this a lot. So I DVR a cartoon, like Bugs Bunny cartoon, and I want to see it play back frame by frame. So I hit like 1/10 the speed, and it's literally one drawing, the next drawing, the next drawing, the next drawing, because there's only 12 to 24 drawings in a second of that kind of animation. So when you slow it down like that, it's one frame to the next frame. Time remap's the same way. So if you speed something up, that's fine, because you're just throwing frames away, if you think about it. But if you slow something down, you have to make sure that you've accounted for that, so that when it slows down, it's still moving smoothly and not chunky like this.
Okay, gotcha.
But that's something we're going to cover in more detail either in the 3rd or the 4th assignment. I think it's no. We talk about it. I don't want to put a number on it because I'm
At some
probably going to
point
be
you
wrong.
talk
But it's baked into what we're doing.
Okay.
And you'll see it. We don't get into it for a long time because we have an advanced class that talks about that in more detail, and the compositing and 2D animatics also gets into time remap for like 1,000 different things. But yeah, you're thinking the right. I think I said this to you before. All the things you're processing, like, well, can you do this? Whatever is leading you to those ideas is the right train of thought, because you're thinking of actual processes that can be accomplished in After Effects. Like that, okay, well, here's the tool. There you go. And I think, I mean, before the bounce thing even, like in the last class that we were together, I forget what it was, but there was something that you were doing probably related to the moving of the hat. And like I said then, I don't remember what it was, but it was like, well, there's a feature for that. Because you're already thinking in the right headspace. Like you're not saying, well, how do I take the logo, this flat two-dimensional object, and then spin it around to look like a 3D object? Well, do you want the two-dimensional thing to spin like a card would spin? Because you can do that. But if you think the thing's going to suddenly have like 3 dimensions and form,
No, I can't do 3 dimensions.
right?
It
And
gives me a headache.
and you probably, even if you wanted to, already know we're dealing with flat objects, so you can't do that with these. And that's what I mean. Like you've already got, like you've got the right mode of thinking, if that makes sense, already in place, and that's literally half the battle.
All right, good.
You know, because your ideas and your questions are coming from a place that actually work with the tools that we're learning. So, you know,
Thank you.
whatever led you there, I just want to encourage you to keep taking that path because it's working. I promised to throw music back on, didn't I? Let's start playing Diamond Dogs. Okay. Oh yeah. Good stuff.
I took a semester of that last semester.
What'd you think?
I didn't really have much to go off of like previous,
Okay.
but for the most part it wasn't too bad learning.
Good. Who'd you have? Billy or Sean? Probably Sean.
I really,
You had Billy? He's a pro. Like, I'm not kidding. He's like an actual huge industry pro now.
yeah.
You
He
know,
was gone for a week at some.
Seagraph or some convention. Yeah. Not Seagraph. It would have been like,
Yeah, he was so excited. He was like, "You guys, I think you made a video about me." I was like,
yeah.
"Wow."
That's why he's no longer helping us out because he's just too damn busy to see straight.
What?
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's what we want. You know, he's a great guy. He was a student here, too. He probably told you that, you know.
He also told us that he could never get into like Canvas and stuff.
Get into
Because
what?
it's like Canvas and stuff because he was a student and they confused him with being a teacher.
Ooh.
So he could never get
Yeah, that would
onto anything.
wreck things, yeah.
And every time he brought it up, he couldn't. Like, it wouldn't be fixed. So he just was like, I totally gave up.
I don't blame him.
He was just so go with the flow, like,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, to be Billy and to do the work that he's done and to work with the people that he works with, you'd have to be. You know.
When he was showing stuff, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like his
He makes me
car
proud.
renderings. Just in general, the car renderings were.
Oh, yeah.
No one can
Yeah.
their computer.
Hmm? You know, it's not the end of the world as long as everybody's logged out. These will go into sleep mode, so it's not as big a deal as it used to be, but, you know, if it's not logged out, that's bad. So, well, the next person can't get in properly is what ends up happening. No, Billy's good people.
Okay, we're all good.
And you said we're gonna work on rendering these.
Next class.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Oh, hold on, don't look at.
Good luck with today's lesson.